When you see riots in the city of Detroit in 1967, and the Rodney King riots of 1992, and the riots that's going on in Ferguson, Missouri, you think that riots originated from blacks, but this isn't so. There were actually riots in Rome, and can be recorded as far back as 44 BC. Most of what you see done by blacks and other non-whites is considered an insurrection due to some type of injustice. But what most whites have done throughout history have been race riots based on lies, hatred, and pure jealousy. History is packed with many riots and massacres of whole communities, lynchings and murderings of innocent women and children, all done by white people.
As blacks began to seek their freedom in the late 1800s, riots began becoming more frequent. Blacks and other ethnic groups started to set up their communities among whites, and tensions began to flare. Here are just a few of the riots and massacres that occurred from 1866 to the early 1900s. The Bellingham riots occurred on September 4, 1907, in Bellingham, Washington, USA. A mob of 400 to 500 white men, members of the Asiatic Exclusion League, with intentions to exclude East Indian immigrants from the workforce, attacked the homes of the South Asian Indians. The Robert Charles riots of 1900, a total of 28 blacks were killed in the riots. The Meridian Race Riot of 1871, which involved Freeman, a former slave that was killed. Whites killed as many as 30 blacks. The Chinese Massacre of 1871 in Los Angeles, when a mob of over 500 white men entered Chinatown to attack, rob, and murder Chinese residents of the city. 18 Chinese immigrants were killed by the mob. The Memphis Riots of 1866. Mobs of white civilians and policemen rampaged through black neighborhoods and the houses of freed men, attacking and killing men, women, and children. 46 blacks and 2 whites were killed, 75 blacks injured, over 100 black persons robbed, 5 black women raped, and 91 homes, 4 churches, and 8 schools burned in the black community by a white mob. The New Orleans Riot of 1866 was a violent conflict in which whites attacked blacks parading outside the Mechanics' Institute in New Orleans. Casualties were estimated at 38 killed and 46 wounded, most of them black. The Springfield Race Riot of 1908 was a mass civil disturbance in Springfield, Illinois. The mob rioted in black neighborhoods, destroying and burning black-owned businesses and homes, and killing black citizens. The Chicago Race Riot of 1919 was a major racial conflict that began in Chicago, Illinois on July 27, 1919, and ended on August 3rd. During the riot, 38 people died and over 500 were injured. It is considered the worst of the approximately 25 riots during the Red Summer, so named because of the violence and fatalities across the nation. The combination of prolonged arson, looting, and murder was the worst race rioting in the history of Illinois. The Knoxville Riot of 1919. According to the National Guard, the death toll was between 30 and 40. Others placed the death toll in the hundreds. By some accounts, the dead were so many that the bodies were dumped into the Tennessee River, while others were buried in mass graves outside the city. The Omaha Race Riot of 1919. The race riot resulted in the brutal lynching of Will Brown, a black worker, the death of 2 white men. It followed more than 20 race riots that occurred in major industrial cities of the United States during the Red Summer of 1919.